Or is Katie?
Yeah, yes, I am. Mr. Stanzik? Mr. Dannenberger?
Present.
Mr. Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Muelich? Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. McCann?
Here.
And Chair Hayden.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. And we don't have any public comment, correct? None were submitted. Okay, so then we'll move past item 3 and go to item 4 on the agenda, which is a review of the minutes of the May 27th meeting. Does anyone have any additions or corrections?
A motion to approve.
Could I just, one thing is that in the first sentence it says May 26th, and I think that should be amended to May 27th.
Yep.
That's about it.
And a second?
Second.
Mr. Krieger? Mr. Dannenberger? On the approval of the minutes? Unmute?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Boyd? There was a thumbs up. Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. McCann?
Yes.
And Chair Hayden.
Yes. All right, that moves us to item 5, our regular agenda. So this will be a public hearing over item PS-02-20, review and action on a petition submitted by Tentec Enterprises for the reinstatement of an approved preliminary planned unit development plan at Fox Creek Subdivision. Due to COVID-19 social distancing considerations, this meeting is obviously being held virtually. So those wishing to testify or comment remotely regarding our public hearing can register. So hopefully you are logging in if you do have public comment. And then we will ask you to unmute and share any testimony after City's presentation. So Katie, I'll turn it over to you to share your screen.
Okay, staff is recommending in favor of case PS-02-20, reinstatement of a preliminary plan for plan unit development at Fox Creek Village Subdivision. It's the entire development is approximately 26 acres. Let's see if it will, there we go. Here's just kind of a picture of the gateway of this Fox Creek Village. The original PUD was approved in the early 2000s, and that's when kind of the subdivision started. And then over the course of 20 years, basically, they've been working on this. In 2013, there was an amendment to the original plan unit development, which was approved by City Council. And then in 2014 was a plat for the 4th edition. Since 2014, no additional plats have been submitted. And so the original plan unit development approved in 2013 is now expired. Those have a life of 3 years. And the applicants are asking for that to be reinstated so they can move forward with the 5th edition, which I'll explain here in a little bit. But this is the area that would be developed in the 5th edition. It's approximately 3 acres of the entire 26 acres, just kind of south of Fox Creek Golf Course and north of Winding Way. Here's a larger aerial view of the entire, this is the land that's still undeveloped as part of this PUD. It's roughly 7 acres. And kind of zoom in a little bit more, you can see the Fox Creek Golf Course is to the north. To the south is a detention basin that serves the entire area. East is additional single-family homes that were developed during the earlier phases of this planned unit development. And then west of here is currently unincorporated territory in the county. And just to look at the zoning map as well, the property is zoned R2. R2 allows for up to 13 units per acre, and the proposed density is much less than that. Planned unit developments, the purpose is to encourage more efficient and creative design for land that would otherwise not be allowed under the zoning regulations. So it's a traditional subdivision similar to our preliminary plan process, except that it allows for private streets. It allows for certain amounts of density or transfers of density from one area of the development to the other. So our maximum floor area allowed in the R2 zoning district is 40% of the land. In this case, the PUD is 29%, would be covered by floor area of homes. It meets the 72% open space requirement. And the common open space, this is a little unique because part of the subdivision originally was the development of Fox Creek Golf Course, which is a publicly owned golf course. Here's kind of another aerial just showing the site. So everything outlined in yellow is the 26 acres, which was developed and approved as part of this preliminary plan, part of the amended preliminary plan. The area to the west of the cul-de-sacs that you see, Winding Way, and I believe it's Misty Lane, area west of that is undeveloped. It's about 7 or 8 acres, and it's all served by this detention basin south of the property. Whoops, sorry. The area is improved with ranch-style single-family homes. Majority of the lots are about 56 by 134 in terms of width and depth. The average density is about 5.2 units, which is less than the 13 units per acre. And the average home size is around 1,000 square feet, ranging from 900 to 1,200 square feet per house. So it provides the community with alternatives to a larger housing stock. Single floor ranch style homes are good for our aging community. They help people age in place because there's not a lot of stairs. So it does provide a unique style of living for Bloomington residents. There is some infrastructure that's required as part of this development. No changes to the previously approved preliminary plan unit development are proposed, but you can see what's kind of existing and what would need to be constructed. And so for the additional phases, there's some construction of public sanitary, public water, public storm sewer, and then, and then some drainage tiles, which would be managed by the homeowners association. Here's also the construction of streets. These are private streets, but Misty Lane and Winding Road would have sidewalk on them as well. So the amendment, the original in 2013, the amendment that happened was, I believe, Misty Lane and Winding Road were both cul-de-sacs. And so in 2013, the amendment was to make those connect, to provide some better connectivity through the neighborhood. So everything that's proposed is keeping with what was previously approved in 2013. And then, as I mentioned, approval of this reinstatement of the preliminary plan will allow the developer to plat 5th edition, which is approximately 15 lots, it's roughly 3 acres. And it would be for that portion of Misty Lane that would continue with the 6th and 7th phases, eventually finishing out Winding Way and moving north towards the golf course. Here's just some more photos of the property. You can see some of the infrastructure's already been put in there. The photo on the left kind of shows the water main that's there. There's still some additional infrastructure needed though. And just some more photos of the homes in the area and the land that would become the phase 6 and 7, and then the basin that serves the property. And also just some additional nearby homes in the subdivision. Looking at the comprehensive plan, this is a tier 3 infill development priority, mostly because the infrastructure is not existing yet. However, everything is keeping with what was approved in 2013, and these improvements have been incorporated in city plans throughout the years. And also, looking at our goals with respect to housing, the development allows us to accommodate alternative housing quality and housing size and kind of diversify our housing stock to meet the needs of future residents. These standards for a planned unit development are, there's 5 standards that we review, and staff's analysis is on the screen in front of you. Staff determined that the standards are met. No changes are proposed from what was previously approved. It provides an alternative and much smaller housing footprint than what some of our newer neighborhoods propose. So it's an alternative housing option. Everything is consistent because it's been previously approved. It's been incorporated into our plans, and so there's not much deviation from our trunk sewer plans and our street plans. We're unaware of any archaeological or historic resources that would be impacted by this development, and the quality of design is consistent with the area, with the neighborhood. So we are recommending in favor. I can answer any questions you have. And also, prior to this meeting, we did receive an email that, George, if you'd like, I can read into the record. It was from the Homeowners Association, and that's been shared with the petitioner as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's going to, does the commission have it at this point?
No, they do not. So I can read it into the record.
It has been shared with the petitioner? Okay, yeah, why don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so this comes from Mary Haskell. I hope I'm saying her name right. She writes that she would like to know what the construction access will be for the development. This appears to be a larger development than the current Fox Creek Village. Now, if there is construction on around Winding Way, the access is from the east end of Carrington over a gravel access to Winding Way and past family homes already occupied. This creates noise and a multitude of airborne particles as well as deterioration of the pavement. We have many who walk their dogs, walk their children, and to have this much construction traffic is a danger. I ask consideration for a different construction entrance considered off Carrington to the west of the current FCV Fox Creek Village condo units. This most certainly prevents disruption of family units already completed and more deterioration of streets, in particular Winding Way in Fox Creek Village. So I can answer any questions you might have, the board might have.
I do have a few questions on things. Can we go back to the standards real quick? Kind of have them organized by the standards. So first on the comprehensive plan, so you mentioned this is tier 3 growth. I looked in the plan and it says that we would be using tier 3 growth if we saw that growth was proceeding past anticipated levels. Does the city have metrics for that? And if so, how has that been trending?
It's really difficult to tell. I mean, I think the developer is wanting to proceed with in anticipation of additional workers coming in, to work at Rivian and to as the community develops out. We do have our regional housing study, which tells us that we have a need for certain types of housing, particularly affordable housing in the community. But we don't have, a lot of metrics on, whether or not we've reached our capacity, I guess, Tyson, as to if, this tier 3 should move forward. There is an existing annexation agreement that's currently valid on the property as well. That's good through 2024.
So yeah, on that point of the annexation, I assume that's why it's considered infill still, even though it is on the edge of town, is because the property's already been annexed.
Right, it's already part of the city. It does have access to some utilities, but some would still need to be extended.
Okay.
So,
And then as far as the need for housing of this design and I assume price point, there's information that indicates that that's needed, that that's not currently available, and like properties aren't for sale at those price points and designs in town.
I mean, there currently are properties for sale at these price points. The market is constantly changing and fluctuating. And so our plans didn't really anticipate the current, economic climate that we are in. But the regional housing study, which was completed in 2017, says that we need units that are accessible, units that are affordable, and that the traditional, 3,000 square foot house is not, we're overbuilt with respect to that type of single family housing, the 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom.
All right.
Hey, Tyson.
Yeah.
I can speak on that just a little bit. I will tell you, I've been involved in several sales out in that development. It is a very popular area for,
Excuse me.
you know,
Can we ask who's speaking? And could you identify yourself for the record?
this is Tom Krieger.
Okay. Tom, you're kind of starting to testify about facts, and since you're acting as a fact finder, it's probably, you could make some comments during the comment period, but normally what we would do is have question and answer with the staff and then the witnesses.
Okay. All right. I'll shut her down.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
This is Tyson again. I wanted to ask also about the point of accommodating people with disability in the aging population. Is the ability to access a location by a method other than car considered in part of that? And is the proximity to a grocery store considered part of accessibility? Like if something's qualified as a food desert, does that factor into accessibility considerations?
I think when we talk about accessibility, I was referring to the actual house itself being accessible, not having multiple stories and multiple stairs. We can let the developer speak a little bit to some of those questions as well, Tyson. And,
Okay.
I think anytime we have an opportunity to develop on or near a bus line is important. Since this was previously approved and there's an existing annexation agreement, staff is also recommending that that no deviations are proposed. That's why we're also recommending in favor of it.
Okay. And then one more question, just in general on that point. What would happen if this was not approved, since it was previously and we're redoing it? What would be the consequence or next step for the city and the developer if city council didn't approve this?
I can let the developer speak to how that might impact their plans. And George, I don't know if legal wants to add anything in regards to the annexation agreement. But I suppose there would always be an opportunity to amend it and then resubmit.
That's correct. It's a preliminary plan, so there, as you say, Katie, that's certainly one way maybe to submit a different plan. But really it's, the next step then I suppose would be up to the developer because it's the developer's land.
Okay.
I would say too that this is a preliminary plan, so there are other things that would be happening, after this, the final platting and things like that.
Okay. All right. I can, if there will be a time for us to ask questions of the developer, I can hold my further questions until then. Thank you.
Hey, Katie, this is Justin Boyd. You were talking about sidewalks on Winding Way and Misty. Are those sidewalks on all streets that are being developed, and are they on both sides of the streets?
So prior to, I had a conversation with the engineer about this yesterday, actually. And so I guess the city, when the first portion of this property was developed, so everything kind of from here upwards, sidewalks were not required by city code. And since these are private streets and they're not built to the city standards, typically we would now require at least sidewalk on one side of the property. So they have added sidewalk on Misty Lane, and there will be sidewalk on Winding, let me go back to the plan for you, on Winding Road, Winding Way, I'm sorry. You can see the sidewalk is the dark line on the plan.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye. So it is still planning right now only on one side of the street.
Right.
And would we have the opportunity to amend our recommendation to include sidewalk on both sides?
I mean, I suppose we could. I think we'd have to see if the developer is amendable to that and agreeable to that. That might also change some of just the street design and the layout of the private streets. But the Planning Commission can make a recommendation with conditions.
Okay. And then where is the closest Connect bus stop currently?
Oh, I don't believe Connect comes out this far. I think I can look it up for you, Justin, but I think it's going to be. I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
This is Tyson again. To piggyback on Justin's question, my observation is that the sidewalks do not proceed down Winding Way to Carrington currently. Barclay Court, Westbrook Drive, based on the satellite images I see, there are no sidewalks out of it. So these sidewalks constructed would be they would go in a circle on Misty Lane and Winding Way, but they wouldn't exit anywhere else. Is that correct?
Right, because that's the neighborhood that you're referring to was developed before the city had that requirement. And so that's why in 2013, when the preliminary plan was amended, it was also amended to include sidewalk on one side of the street for the new phases. I don't know that the city would have any ability to go back and require them to put sidewalk in on the other, on the previously approved phases.
Do we have any other questions for Katie?
Sorry.
If not, do we have the developer on the phone? Okay, so at this time we'll open up this portion of the public hearing for testimony. So if anyone would like to speak on behalf of the petitioner, can you please state your name, address, and I'll swear you in.
I believe it's Jeff Gastill is on the phone, maybe.
Jeff, I can see your name in our Brady Bunch screen, but we can't hear you talking. Do we have anyone else that's planning to speak?
We have David Fetter, who is the applicant. He registered to speak, but he is not on the call right now. And then Craig Earl from Farnsworth Group also registered to speak, but they're not on the Zoom call at the moment.
This is Craig.
Okay. Then I apologize.
That's okay. I was just talking with Jeff. Jeff's office right next to me. He was having issues with the sound and the mic on what he was trying to get through. So.
Craig, do you want to provide testimony or come before the commission for Q&A?
I thought Katie had explained everything extremely well. I have nothing further to add.
Are you able, sorry. Craig, are you able to speak on behalf of the petitioner, or is somebody else there at your office able to speak on behalf of the petitioner? And if
I
so,
can either try to speak, yes,
I was just gonna say, if
or I can
so,
try to get Jeff over here.
Either one of those would work. It's up to you guys. As a petitioner, you probably, you may want to have someone who can answer questions that along the lines of, I think, what you've heard from the commission and so on.
just to point out, there's nobody else at City Hall right now either.
I was just going to ask you that, Katie.
Yep.
So there's no one there physically present in that
Yeah,
room.
Jeff is now sitting right next to me, so we can absolutely, both of us online, address any questions.
Well, I would suggest that you each be sworn and testify separately, so we have a clear record of who's saying what to whom. So maybe we could start with Jeff.
Actually, he just stepped out again. I'm sorry.
That's the fun of virtual meetings,
Yep. Here he is, right here. Hold on one second. I can get Jeff on. I want you to swear in.
Hello.
Hi, Jeff. This is Megan Hayden. I'm going to swear you in.
Sure.
Can you please state your name and your address for the commission?
It's Jeff Gastel, 311 East Washington Road, Carlock, Illinois.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. So I think Craig had
Yeah,
stated that. Go ahead.
Yeah, the developer can't connect either. He's viewing the meeting, and really would like to say something, but he cannot seem to get the phone connected. So I will answer as many questions as I can.
Is he having an issue with the phone number, Jeff? With calling in?
Dave, are you calling into the 312 number?
No, I don't have that number. That's my problem. I can't find it anywhere.
Oh.
Perhaps we may be able to email him some information. Does that make sense for you, Katie?
Yeah, Craig's emailing it to him now.
Okay. Do you want to do a little testimony in the meantime? Yes.
Do you want me to swear Craig in too, since I think they're using the same audio and they may just be speaking back and forth?
I think,
like I said, I think it's cleaner to have one witness at a time in terms of the record.
Craig
So if you could do one at a time, I'd appreciate it. Certainly, it doesn't matter if you swear them. If you want to swear them in, fine. But we want to have one witness at a time.
Okay.
I was trying to get in through my iPad, but that's not working.
Yeah, Dave, you're going to have to call in.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hang up with you, Jeff, and call in.
All right, very good.
Yep. And
Bye.
we just heard from the city's IT team that if needed, they can give the developer a call and get them in on our end if this doesn't work for him to try the link through the email that you just forwarded.
Yeah, he's hanging up with me on my cell, and he's going to try and call in the number that we sent him, the 312 number.
Jeff, do you feel comfortable answering questions, or would you prefer to wait and see if we can?
No, I can try and answer whatever I can here. Dave's got the history with the homeowners association, and has been in touch with them regarding some of their concerns in the past.
Jeff, could you say what your position is, either with the organization or, or how you figuring with the project?
Well, we're the engineers for the petitioner.
Okay. Chairman Hadan, does anyone want to ask questions, or how would you like to proceed at this point?
Okay, this is Dave Fetter. I am in now.
Oh.
But I did miss a portion of this trying to connect. I'm sorry.
Yep, David, we appreciate you jumping on. I think it would probably be best, since you're the developer, for us to start. I think most of our questions are along those lines. I think we maybe have one or two that would go to the engineers, but if it's all right with all parties, I'm going to swear in David and we'll start peppering you with questions.
That's fine.
All right, David, can you please state your name and address for the commission?
David W. Fedor, 2 Stonehedges Court, Bloomington, Illinois.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you, David. David, I don't know if you want to proactively add anything or address anything. Otherwise, I'll open it up for questions.
I think I would just add that it's kind of exciting to actually be adding some additional lots to this development. Things have been slow, as you know, for quite some time here, and this was a popular area when, back before 2008, when things kind of fell out of the real estate market, and we are seeing people coming back now looking for housing of this type. It's very difficult to build new construction below the 200,000 mark, just because standards and things have changed over the years, and the costs of building and developing as well. But we're excited to be able to start providing a little more product. This has become very popular again, and we are running out of the lots that we currently have developed and ready.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for David?
Yeah. Hi, David. This is Tyson. Got a couple questions for you. So,
okay.
So I wanted to talk about the street arrangements here and how that works for private streets. So do the developer maintain ownership of those streets?
We do not, Tyson. We pay for the infrastructure to be developed initially, and in addition to that, we do pay into the homeowners association on a monthly basis for all of the lots that are currently undeveloped and unsold. As those houses or lots sell, then the new homeowner takes over the requirement for paying into the homeowners association for that particular lot. So ultimately, when every lot has been developed and sold, then the homeowners association would be the ones paying in and then paying to maintain the streets. So we put in the infrastructure initially, and until the development is completed and we have sold the last lot, we do pay into the homeowners association our share for the unsold lots up until that time.
Okay. And then the amount that the homeowners association needs to save to be in a position to fulfill those maintenance needs, is that something you assist them with assessing, or is that their responsibility?
Well, it's ultimately their responsibility. We assist as needed or as requested.
Do you have, I assume you have developments that have gone beyond the 20 to 30 year period that a road usually lasts. Are HOAs, in your experience, typically successful at storing up enough money over that time to fund their infrastructure needs?
Well, I haven't I haven't taken one that far, I would say, at this point in time. But I would say that properly managed by the homeowners association, they should be able to maintain the streets. And these are concrete streets. And the homeowners association is putting aside, I believe it's $100 a month per homeowner or per lot. So managed properly and throughout their, the life of the subdivision, they should be able to do that.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I know what happens with other infrastructure around here. So then water, there is some city infrastructure that's going to need to be built. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Water and sewer?
Yes, and we build that. We will be connecting to the existing infrastructure that was sized properly when this development was originally put together and planned way back in the early 90s. And we will be adding to that infrastructure, and that would all be completed at our expense. And as the subdivision is completely built out, we will follow that same plan.
Okay. And then the city assumes responsibility for that going forward after the development is complete.
I'm not sure if I know that the Fox Creek Village Association is responsible for the roads. I believe that the city assumes responsibilities for the underground infrastructure. Maybe Jeff can answer that.
I think we'll save that question. Tyson will have Katie address
I can
it.
talk to Jeff about that.
She was nodding her head, so
okay.
I think that's probably a better question for the city to respond to.
Yes.
I think my last question here is around, we have a standard 5 about, we have 5 standards we're evaluating this on. One of the standards reads that it should present an innovative and creative approach to the development of the land and the living environment. My understanding is these houses will be constructed of similar material and style as the surrounding properties. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is our plan.
Okay.
We're trying to have them be in keeping with the current neighborhood.
So in terms of innovation and creativity, do you have concern about the whole area being built out of the same materials and as such weathering in the same way and at the same pace over time?
Well, we are, because we are trying to build size and, well, let me say this. We're trying to stay in keeping with the neighborhood, and we're trying to also stay in keeping with the affordable nature of the neighborhood. That does limit us in many ways as to what kinds of materials we use. I will say that the materials, construction materials, have changed quite a bit in the last 20 years, and as new and better materials become available that we can work into the same affordable nature of the development as it currently is, we definitely do try to use those new and better materials that weather better and last longer. Obviously, it's not economically possible for us to stay in keeping with the current affordability of the neighborhood to come in and do an all brick ranch. It's just not something that's possible to stay within those, the same parameters. But we do the best that we can in using the most newest and best materials so that the homes weather and last a long time.
Okay. I guess my point was that the houses will all be made out of the same materials. So regardless of how long they last, whenever one person's roof is nearing time to be replaced, all the neighbors would also have to have that done, for example. Is that accurate?
Well, Not necessarily, because the development has been done over a number of years already. I live out in this area, in probably one of maybe the second edition of Fox Creek Subdivision, and I just replaced my roof. My house is 24 years old. I just replaced it last year. But then there are some of my neighbors are probably maybe 2 or 3 years away from replacing their roofs, and then other sections of the subdivision maybe 20 years away. The houses that we're building now out there would typically have a minimum of a 20-year roof, and so the initial homes built will start to need to have their roofs replaced, but this has been done over the course of time, so it'll be it won't be an all-at-once type thing. It will, and some roofs, last longer than others, depending upon, the conditions that they've experienced. So, I think it'll be a gradual thing, and it will be the same way with the streets. The streets that were put in initially may have some, when they start to have some issues and need to be upgraded or patched. That will happen on a gradual basis. It won't be a failure all at one time, just because it's been done over a course of years.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Does anyone else have any questions for David? David, I've got a couple. So we had a question come up to Katie that I think is probably better suited to you, or I know our own Tom Krieger's a realtor. He could speak to it. So can you speak a little bit to the demand in Bloomington Normal for homes of this style and in this price point? And then with this new, as you guys start to build and plat, will the lots be on demand? So people will buy a lot, you'll build the house, or will you pre-build houses and then people will purchase from that inventory?
Well, I'll speak to the last one first. We will do both. We have seen an interesting change in the last 6 months, actually, and I do think the addition of Rivian and some other employers in the area is having an impact. We typically will build what we refer to as spec homes. So we will try to have 2 to 3 of those going at any one time in various stages of completion, and we will have our realtors, as they show those homes, they will often get people who will say, well, I like this home, but I'd like to have this type of flooring. Can you build me a home with these items that I'd like to put in 2 doors down on this empty lot? And we will do that. So we call those a pre-sold. So we will have a combination of both, and we do have a combination of both out there right now. And the interesting thing is that for the first time in a long time here in Bloomington Normal, we're seeing new construction sell ahead of it even being completed. And that's just started taking place since early spring. We've not seen that for quite some time in this market. And it's refreshing. I mean, it brings in new taxpayers, it brings in, property taxes, and it uses up lots that have been waiting to be developed or have been developed and been waiting to be built on for quite some time because of the stagnant market. So yes, in answer to your question, we will be doing both. And it's preferable that we do have people that are saying, I want this lot, I want this house over here, will you build me that? It's preferable for us that we're building those types of homes rather than building spec homes and then waiting to sell them, because we know we have a buyer already. And we are seeing quite a bit of that now, and particularly in this subdivision as well. And the price point, it's, as I mentioned earlier, I think building below 200,000 in a new home, in a brand new build, is very difficult these days. You really have to watch your costs. And there really isn't a lot of that available. In fact, I don't know if anybody else is building a new home in Bloomington Normal that is in that 190 to 210 price range, because it is a unique situation, and we're comfortable in that price range. We've been doing it out there, and we feel we're doing a pretty good job of it. The competition to that, of course, are existing homes that oftentimes sell with larger, maybe more square footage, but they are an existing home. And what comes along with that is you may have to be replacing your roof, you may have to be replacing your furnace, your air conditioning, those types of things. So you may be paying less for the home, for existing home, but with new construction, you have everything's brand new, and so you have the opportunity to have those types of expenses not come along in the next 4 or 5 years. And I think, people are starting to see that, and especially if they're going to be here for a while, they're not going to be in and out in a few years. So, and the availability of existing homes is very low on the market right now. So the new construction is starting to move, but no one else that I know of is building much, if anything, in this price range.
Thank you for that context. I think that helps us. That gives us some insight into the market and the need. Okay, so my other question, we had an email from a current resident that had asked if there could be a different construction entrance. I think right now it's from the east, and she had asked for it to be from the west, just concerned about, I think, the impact to the roads and then the safety in the neighborhood. So I wasn't sure if you heard Katie's testimony to enter that into the record. And then if you had maybe a thought or a comment on that.
We have, right now, there's one entrance to this subdivision, this particular development. And it was designed that way, so that it would be a kind of a neighborhood unto itself. And because the residents and the homeowners association own the roads, and ultimately will have to take care of that infrastructure, we felt that the safety and that of them having the single entrance was important, and that's the way it was originally designed. We do have a construction entrance that comes off of the east, and it actually comes over a lot that we own, and that is so that these construction vehicles aren't coming in the main entrance. That's why that lot was set aside to be able to use as specifically as a construction entrance, and we have been using that for quite some time. There really isn't any way for us to come in from the west. I don't have the plat up in front of me, but you're either coming across someone's private property or you're coming across city property on the golf course, which I'm sure the city does not want us to access all the way around. We would actually be tearing up fairways to be able to get in. There's just no other way in other than this construction entrance.
Okay, and Katie's sharing her screen. I think that helps with that context.
And the contractor that will come in to do this is someone that we have worked with for many years, UCM Row Construction. And they are very good at taking care of making sure that mud isn't left on the streets, that the construction entrance is kept in good shape. And we intend to make sure that they do that. And city staff does a good job of policing that too.
Okay, and my last question, someone had asked where the closest Connect Transit bus stop was, and city didn't know the answer. I don't know if you guys are aware just off the top of your heads.
I believe that the closest one is at the entrance, is on Fox Creek Road at the entrance to Pepper Ridge. There's a multifamily project would be on the north side of Fox Creek Road. There's Pepper Ridge Park is there, and there's other single family developments out in that area, and including of course, Pepper Ridge School. I don't know if you can bring something up, but I do believe there's a Connect Transit bus stop at that intersection of Fox Creek Road, and it would be Danbury, which is the street that comes into Pepper Ridge. And Pepper Ridge is actually Danbury, down Danbury and through Pepper Ridge is another way to get directly to the entrance to Fox Creek Village. The other way is to go out onto Carrington and go to the west, which will basically bring you back out onto Fox Creek Road. I would say probably 3 or 4 blocks from where the clubhouse of the den is, actually, to the east.
All right.
And
Thank you very much,
do not
David.
know that Connect Transit comes down to that point, but I do believe that they come to that intersection of Fox Creek Road and where the entrance to Pepper Ridge is.
All right, that answers all the questions that I had and the outstanding questions that we had after Katie's testimony. Does anyone have anything else? All right, David, thank you for your testimony. Does anyone else wish to speak on behalf of the petitioner?
I did have a question for the engineer if he's available. Is it Jeff, I believe? Since we already swore him in, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, this is Craig. Jeff is right here next to me, so yes, you can.
I guess from an engineering standpoint, is part of your process to determine what the present value of the future liabilities associated with this development are from an infrastructure standpoint?
There are no calculations done to predict those things. The city requires a current construction cost estimate to bond for the public improvements, but that's as far as those kind of considerations are taken.
So with that, you wouldn't be able to provide how much sales tax and property tax would be necessary to ensure that this development is a financial net benefit for the city?
No, those kinds of calculations are not done as part of the requirements for the construction plans for the subdivision. And I don't believe any language like that exists in the annexation agreement either.
And it's not part of engineering practice?
No, it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for the engineers? And I just checked the participant list. We don't have anyone else online that would speak in opposition. So at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing portion, and I will open it up for comments and discussion amongst the commission to talk through motions.
Could I confirm just one last thing with city staff, please? As I look at the comprehensive plan, there is a graphic that shows response times for fire services. And I believe the metric stated is a 6-minute response time is the target response time. And this area falls outside of that target response time. That would be page 170 of the comprehensive plan. Just like to confirm that I'm reading that correctly.
I don't have the comprehensive plan in front of me, Tyson, but I can pull it up. And, you know, we do have a fire station out here, and we defer to the fire department about whether or not they need to use it. But there was one built on this side of town around the early 2000s when this construction was happening. So I would probably defer to the Chief Moore about, you know, response times and whether or not it's necessary to open up that fire station to serve these new people. But there is a fire station out this area.
A fire station that's not operable currently.
It's currently not being used as a fire station, but that's because the demand is not there.
Okay. I ask because I feel it's relevant to standard 3 of impact of public facilities and resources if you consider fire safety to be a city service and a resource. So, okay.
To speak to your other question, Tyson, real fast, you had asked about whether or not the city would be maintaining the water and the sewer. And yes, what happens is the developer submits design specs, the engineering department reviews them, the infrastructure is built to comply with our codes, and then there's final inspections that happen. And after everything has been inspected and is acceptable to the city standards, then we would take on that infrastructure for maintenance.
And does the city do a calculation of what that the present value of that liability constitutes?
You mean like a fiscal impact analysis?
Yes.
No, we have not done a fiscal impact analysis with this. I know in the comprehensive plan, there is a fiscal impact analysis about new subdivisions and the return on investment that those have for the city. You know, and residential in general does not necessarily yield a positive impact. I mean, unless you are talking about multi-million-dollar homes in certain parts of town. If you look at that map, and I think it's in section 3 of the comprehensive plan, there is costs to new subdivisions in terms of impacts on utilities. Once again, though, since it has already been approved and already been considered in our comprehensive plan and in our sewer plan, staff is recommending in favor of this.
So does someone want to make a motion on these 5 findings of fact? And then I think we'll probably have some discussion about that.
I have a point of order. If I wanted to amend or challenge some of the findings of fact, would that be better to do before or after a motion is made?
Well, a couple thoughts on that. With regard to the, I mean, you can go about it a couple ways. One is if someone made a motion to adopt the findings and there was a vote up or down on that, then, you know, that would say something as to whether, you know, it passes or not. But another way, what you could move through the findings and discuss them one by one or vote on them one by one. That's another way to do it. And I don't, in my understanding, I'm not sure that every single finding needs to be found in the same way that it does with respect to a variance. Isn't that correct, Ms. Simpson?
Yes.
I mean, I think these are factors to be considered. So, you know, like in a variance, it has to meet all 5. In this case, these are the things to be considered. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, your decision should be based on findings. But this is not an all or nothing at all proposition necessarily with respect to the findings. I don't know if that helps you, Mr. Moore, or not. But
yeah. So I'll try this. I'd like to add to amend the findings for item 1 about concerning alignment with the comprehensive plan. I don't believe that there is sufficient growth in the community based on population over the time period or foreseen to justify development in a tier 3 area. I think by the wording of the comprehensive plan, this kind of development would only be justified in a tier 1 area. So I don't see it being alignment there. And I also do not agree that it is accessible to people with disabilities and aging residents, as it can only be it's only accessible via car. So even though the construction of the house itself may facilitate that, the broader neighborhood can't be accessed with anyone who has a disability or age condition that prevents them from driving, which is typical of some disabilities and aging residents. So, so I guess those would be my findings of fact on number 1. And I would make.
Can I suggest Tyson maybe make a motion to adopt findings 2 through 5, and then we'll vote on it one separately?
Yeah. So with that in mind, I'll make a motion that we adopt findings 2, 4, and 5.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
So this is approval of the findings for items 2, 4, and 5. Ms. McCann? I'm sorry, George.
I was going to say, and we're talking here about adopting the staff's findings on 2, 4, and 5. That language and so on. Is correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger?
Yes.
And Chairperson Hayden?
Yes. So that motion carries. So Tyson, are you going to make a separate motion on 1 and 3?
I'll make a separate motion on 1 at this point. Per my previous comments, I don't believe that this development is aligned with the comprehensive plan. And the only thing to add to what I said before is this development was designed prior to the creation of the comprehensive plan.
So what's your motion?
My motion is that the findings of fact for number 1 is that it doesn't meet the criteria for tier 3 development of, sorry, let me get the language. Comprehensive plan states that tier 3 development is needed if growth accelerates beyond current anticipated levels. I don't believe that that's met, and it is not accessible to elderly and disabled populations. I move that we accept those 3 facts for standard 1.
Can we get the participants in the meeting to please mute themselves? We're getting a lot of background noise.
Let me say it one more time. Summarize.
Yeah.
I'm just confused on what we're voting on. Would it be better served for someone who agrees with motion 1 to make the motion and then allow those that disagree with it to vote no? George, I'm asking you, I guess.
Yeah, you could do. That is one way to do it. Mr. Moore has made a motion, so he'd have to withdraw it for us to proceed that way.
So, a yay on Tyson's motion would reject number 1. Am I correct there?
That's how I understand it. Yes, because he's saying the finding wasn't met, and he's pointing out reasons.
Okay,
So,
that would be.
As long as I understand, I'm fine.
Just a point of order on that one. So I think what the way that Tyson's going about this is that we would send something to council that says we disagree that this meets the standard, and establishing new facts to kind of make that argument. Whereas if someone motions to approve it and we vote against it, then nothing goes to council on 1 and 3.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If I might add, and George, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but motions typically are in the affirmative. And if you vote it, if this gets a second, and if it is voted down, then you'll still have to vote in the affirmative again. I would assume.
I think we get the sense of what he's saying here. It wasn't met, and that's his motion. If it's seconded correctly, I think that's fine. There's a finding. There'll be a finding of fact that it was not met for the reasons that has specified. And I don't know if you want to restate those reasons very briefly, just in a sentence, Tyson. But I'm hearing that you don't feel that the comprehensive plan was met because it's not accessible. And perhaps you could flesh the other two out.
Yeah, so there's 3 reasons. It's not accessible. It doesn't meet the criteria in the plan for tier 3 development. And it was designed prior to the comprehensive plan.
So if there's not a second, then we could proceed a different way. If there is a second, there could be a vote on that. I don't know that we then need to vote on differently.
Do we have a second? It looks like the motion fails. So do we have a motion to approve or adopt finding 1? Does anyone agree with staff's finding on 1?
This is Justin. I will actually motion, sorry, I'm flipping pages. I will motion to adopt staff's finding fact 1 for the comprehensive plan, as well as motion 3 as stated by staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Was that Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we do a roll call, please?
Do you want to have discussion?
Do we have any discussion on that?
Yeah, I'll share what I was going to say about 3 to see if it changes anyone's mind on voting on that one. The standard is impact on public facilities and resources. This construction would be on the edge of town, the most southwestern residential development that we have. It would put a strain on fire resources. It would put a strain on trash collection resources. It adds to our sewer responsibilities in an unknown manner because that impact has not been calculated by the developer or staff. And it is, and then there's also been an indication by the comment submitted by the HOA that that construction would create an undesirable situation there. That speaks to the, oh, sorry, I retract that last one. It's from a different thing. But I believe there's a strain on resources that isn't considered properly, and that's why I would vote against 3.
So because this is already in city's plans, I think 3 does meet the standards, but Tyson kind of talked me into his thinking on 1. So I'm going to vote yes, because this is bundled. But if we had separated 1 and 3, I would have voted with Tyson on 1, that I don't think that prioritizing tier 3 aligns with the comprehensive plan.
This is Justin. I'll just speak to why I made the motion. Honestly, if we could go back in time and predict how the housing market would have gone since 2008 when this development was built, I'd probably be on page with you. But we're talking about quick math, like what, 11-12% of the total development being approved here. The infrastructure and the plans have already started to be developed over the past several years. I don't see value in changing that at this point. So again, if we could go back in time, I might be on the same page, but where we are today, I think that it does meet. I agree with staff's findings of fact on both 1 and 3 of previously approved. It's been incorporated in future infrastructure plans. I think these are standards of fact.
Any other comments? All right, can we please do roll call?
This is for staff findings approving items number 1 and number 3. Ms. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Moore?
Dyson?
Oh yeah, my computer froze. No.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger?
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes. I just said something so smart on mute. That motion carries. So we just need one more motion to adopt staff's recommendation and send that to council.
This is Justin. I'm going to make a motion that we recommend to reinstate the preliminary development plan for Fox Creek Plan Unit Development with a condition that sidewalks be built on both sides of the street for all newly built streets. I'm excited. I'll discuss that later. So that's my motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
This is Justin again. I'll just discuss my motion. I think going forward, it's important that we make these streets as walkable and accessible as possible, and that's why I'm putting that condition on my motion. But I am excited about the new construction, especially selling at the new construction selling again, especially at the price point that it's at. That's really I know inventory on existing homes and that price point is extremely low from my personal experience. So I'm excited to see some new construction getting built and showing that that's a need in our community. But I do think that sidewalks on both sides of the street going forward on all new development is going to be imperative to staying with what our overall goal and objective is for the city. So that's why I made that motion.
Do we know if the HOA or the city is responsible for sidewalks? My assumption is the HOA.
That would be my assumption as well.
Katie nodded. Yes.
Part of the street.
It's Katie. Yeah, is Katie going to address that?
George, I do believe that the sidewalk and the sidewalk maintenance is part of the street and is not considered public. So I think the HOA is responsible for that.
And so that might not be something that would be involved with this applicant. Is that your take on that? I mean, it's a condition, but it's imposed on the HOA. It's not imposed on the, I mean, I'm not sure that it.
It's a new sidewalk. It's a new sidewalk, George. So the developer would be the one putting the sidewalk in initially, if I understand it correctly.
I think what George is saying is, well, I don't want to speak for you, George, but
I'll go right ahead. I'll correct you if I need to.
I think what he's just highlighting, though, is that, you know, the sidewalk, the second sidewalk wasn't part of the original budget. And so any costs for that, yes, are going to be on the developer, but more than likely those are going to then be included in the cost of the lot or passed to the HOA for maintenance purposes. And
Yeah.
it could also impact the cost of the actual housing. I don't know significantly or not, but
and the other thing is you're going so that you're talking about to amend the preliminary plan to include them. Is that what you're saying? I mean, because we're talking here about whether this preliminary plan is approved or not for the POD, you know, and so I'm saying this partly to get some clarification, but I mean, we can't. The other things are not involved in the preliminary plan. I meant old sidewalks or sidewalks in other places, you know. Correct.
That's why.
And so, yeah. And I honestly, this is kind of a new one on me, where we would be adding that. And I'm not really sure what the ramifications would be for the engineers and developers and, you know, residents and so on. I don't know that we've made a record for that.
Tom, just from your personal experience, you have a thought on what kind of cost that would add to an HOA or a home price?
Well, it's probably going to add at least $1,500 to $1,800 per house on the side of the street where the sidewalk is not located. If you look at the map and the plat, you can kind of see all the way throughout the subdivision when you go up to Winding Way, you can see the sidewalk is on the opposite side of the street. On the one on Misty is on the south side of the street. On Winding Way, they're on the north side of the street. So I think, and then if you move up to, I can't think of the first street there. So they kind of alternated the side of the street that the sidewalk was on. And the homeowners, it's never been an issue with the people that are in the area. Like I said, I probably sold 7 of those units or 8 of those units in my career. And, they having one sidewalk on one side is not, it's been acceptable. The impact on the lots that don't have the sidewalk is probably going to be in that neighborhood that I spoke about earlier. And I don't know how that affects the lot size and the setback requirements that the city requires as well.
Thank you, Tom. So Justin, maybe just to wrap up the discussion, other than walkability, accessibility, anything aligning to the comprehensive plan, like any last pitch you want to make before we vote on this?
No, I stand by what I said before. I think going forward that having sidewalks on both sides of the streets are imperative. Obviously, there's nothing we can do about the past and only having them on one side. But going forward, I think it's important that we make it as accessible. I mean, don't know who's going to live in that house without sidewalk on one side, and they might need to get somewhere in the future too, whether it be wheelchair or whatever, and we don't want them in the road. So that, I mean, it's as simple as that. We just want to make sure that we make our homes and our new construction as accessible as possible for everyone.
Thanks, Justin. Anyone else? All right, so roll call, and just to remind everyone, this is on a motion to approve the preliminary PUD plan to council with an amendment that they add sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
No.
Mr. Krieger,
No.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger,
No.
and Chair Hayden.
Yes.
We have a tie vote. George, can you give us your insights?
I think that a tie vote fails, but I'd have to really check on that. Let me see.
And that was on the motion to
I think as an
reinstate-
affirmative, yeah.
Yeah, that was on the motion to reinstate the PUD plan with the supplemental recommendation for sidewalks on both sides of the streets within the subdivision, within the development.
Right, and I think the tie means the motion is denied.
Is there a second motion of any interest?
I don't have one. Nope.
Does anyone want to move to adopt the city's recommendation and adopt the preliminary development plan as stated? Justin, you want to try your motion again?
Yeah, I'll make the same motion again if you'd like me to.
I would.
I'll make a motion to recommend City Council reinstate the preliminary development plan for Fox Creek Plan Unit Development with the condition of sidewalks being built on both sides of any new street built.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion to sway our no's or our yeses?
The reason why I didn't accept standard 3 is because I believe that when you take into account all of the liabilities that are created by housing of this type, of this construction, and on a cul-de-sac or loop type approach way outside of the center of the city, you create more liability than you do value for the city. And so adding more sidewalk only increases the amount of infrastructure that's being created along this for the city and the HOA to take care of. So that's why I'm against it.
In that argument, wouldn't we be better off not building any sidewalks?
That was the motion I was considering putting in, but then that goes against the comprehensive plan. So I feel like we're deadlocked here.
I think of the importance of accessibility to new residents moving forward. I mean, I don't have any other argument other than that. So I would call the question.
Yeah, I also think we've been pretty consistent as we've been reviewing business plans and pushing them to add sidewalks. That's why I voted yes, that's been a consistent ask that we've made of developers in the past 2 years.
Can we call the question?
Yeah, and Katie just wanted to reiterate that this is just a recommendation that we're making to council, that this doesn't hold the developers to anything. Yeah, so with that, let's do roll call again, please.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
No.
Mr. Krieger,
No.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Donenberger,
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes.
That
Did
motion
Ms.
does
McCann, excuse me, I'm sorry. I didn't hear Ms. McCann's vote.
she was quiet, but I heard her. I think she said yes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yep, so the motion carries, which closes out our regular agenda. With that, we'll move on to item 6, old business, which we don't have any of. Item 7, new business. We don't have any on the agenda, but Katie, George, anyone have any new business?
I have nothing.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on item 8.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.